Hey guys, what is up? It is Austin here bringing you guys another episode of the podcast, which I still don't have a name for right now. We're just going with Ray Talk Sports, but I want to have a different one for the podcast in the future. But, we'll get to that when we get to that. But on today's episode, we have quite a bit of to talk about news in the NFL. There is so much that happened in week two. It just, oh my goodness, man. The amount of stuff that happened in week two. It was a crazy week for football fans, especially if you're a Bengals fan. That's what we're going to start off with at the top of the episode today is the Bengals defeating Jacksonville. We did beat them. However, it was more of a Pyrrhic victory because in that victory, we missed out on Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is now injured again, and the good news is it might not be season ending. Zach Taylor actually spoke in a press conference today. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. In his press conference, he said he is not ruling out Joe Burrow, and then apparently he's eyeing a return for middle of December, which would put him back in the season with about 4 or 5 games left to play, depending on when he plays. So in the meantime, Jake Browning will be taking over for Joe Burrow, which he has done before. And Jake Browning is a comparable backup quarterback, in my opinion. He is almost like the perfect backup in my eyes because he's very confident in general. First off, he's an extremely confident person, which for a backup quarterback, I think you need to have that confidence. He's done this before, and he's not afraid to sling the football. He is not afraid to go deep, and he has pretty decent accuracy. Now, where Browning struggles, in my opinion, is tight window throws. I think Browning is far better at hitting the open things than taking a shot every now and then. But we will see what happens. He has a revenge game coming up. We travel to Minnesota to play the Vikings in Minnesota. No J.J. McCarthy, no Aaron Jones, and we have no Joe Burrow, and we might be without a couple defenders this week. So, I mean, we could win. We could be off to a 3-0 start, but it might be the most painful 3-0. However, I think if Browning can get this team to at least like 7 wins by the time Burrow's back. If we are like a game positive or even by the time Joe Burrow comes back, if Joe Burrow comes back with like 4 games left to play, I like our chances at getting the playoffs. So I'm a lot more optimistic than a lot of Bengals fans. That might change if we lose to Minnesota. I'm really banking on us beating Minnesota because if we can start out on a 3-0 start, right? Jake Browning gets a 3-game cushion to work with before all the big games come in. If he can just make 1 or 2 upsets in some of these bigger games, and he can just beat the teams that we're supposed to beat. The season is not over. Joe Burrow can come back in time for a playoff run, which I would be very, very excited about. The Bengals, as a whole, are very concerning, especially on defense. Trey Hendrickson, I just read, leads the league in pressures. He has 14 in 2 games, which is it's just amazing. He only has 2 sacks, but, obviously if you're the only person that's getting pressure, it's hard. Especially, if they double team you or, they put a running back to chip you, before they go out. It's tough. So I'm really happy with Trey Hendrickson so far. He's been far, 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 far worth more than what he's been being paid as it is. So we're probably not keeping him after this year because I saw him come up clutch last year in games too, and they made no effort to keep him until they absolutely had to. And then we saw this being one of the worst defenses of all time. I know the numbers for the Bengals defense look decent, but I think a lot of people aren't taking into context. Week 1, we played Cleveland. They're terrible. They just put up I think they put 17 points up against the Ravens, and they were getting blown out, right? So they're terrible. And then, this week we let up 27 points to Jacksonville. Sorry, should have been more. Jacksonville dropped 2 touchdowns. So Trevor Lawrence really should have had 5 passing touchdowns. So I'm not wowed by this performance. I'm wowed that we won the game. We did not deserve to win the game. The defense has come up with timely stops. They have not been like worst defense of all time. I just smacked the shit out of my hat. But they have not been like worst defense of all time like we were thinking that they could be. They've actually been a little bit better than that. Far better than that, I should say. They're not like the worst defense in the world. They're very opportunistic, which I like. Give me a defense that capitalizes on opportunities. They've done that pretty decently so far, which I'm, obviously very happy about. But moving on from the Bengals, a couple other things I want to talk about. One is Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay. They could be a dark horse Super Bowl contender. That offense they have, with Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Emeka Ibuka, and then eventually Chris Godwin's going to get healthy. Bucky Irving is amazing. And then Rachaad White as a number 2 running back. I mean, he is just really good to have as your, backup running back, not your starter. And even if he was starting, he'd be a decent starter. And their defense, pretty impressive with what they were able to do. They just had that insane fourth quarter comeback with less than 2 minutes on the clock. Baker scores with like 6 seconds left. And, they beat the Texans after it looked like the Texans might actually win that game. But I'm a little bit concerned about the Texans, if I'm being completely honest with you. Their offense is not as potent as I thought it was. I think C.J. Stroud has, one or two passing touchdowns right now. The run game looks atrocious. Nick Chubb had that one breakaway run, but aside from that, there was, nothing from them. So I'm really concerned about the Texans, honestly, if I'm a Texans fan. You guys know me. I love C.J. Stroud. I'm an Ohio State football fan, so, of course, I'm going to root for C.J. Stroud. But I'm nervous. I'm really nervous about them. But the Buccaneers look awesome. They just look awesome. I used to hate Baker Mayfield. I'm one of those guys that I'm open about how goddamn wrong I was about him because, that last year in Cleveland and then his play in Carolina, it was looking like they were going to be, or he was done. I thought his career was over. I thought he was, I'm going to be honest. I thought he was an awful quarterback, and he has proved me wrong every step of the way since getting into Tampa. Far better system, and he gets a far better player. But another team that I really should have talked about first because, I live in Wisconsin. The fucking Packers, man. They are insane this year so far. So the only major flaw, and I want to start off with the flaw because then I'll get to the praise. The only major flaw that I'm noticing is their second half offense. Now they did get a touchdown late in the game against the Commanders to just ice the game, a game that I thought that, the Packers would win, and they did. Their first half offense seems way better than their second half offense. And, that could be because, week one, they were kind of kicking the shit out of the Lions, even though the score was close. And same with the Commanders, but they're getting in games where it feels like they're blowing them out. And then you look at the scoreboard and you're like, oh shit, they're only up by 7. And then, they'll make a timely score at the end of the game. So it's not even a major flaw, but that's the only thing that I could really complain about them right now. That and Jordan Love just I love Jordan Love. Don't get me wrong. I am a big Jordan Love fan. I had to convince everybody that I knew that Jordan Love was going to be a good quarterback. But Jordan Love, he has one or two plays a game. I might have said this in last week's podcast, but he has one or two plays a game where I'm just like, Jordan, what the are you seeing the field properly? What is happening here? But then he also has a couple God level plays every game too. So he, I think Jordan Love's going to be great. He's going to be an MVP candidate this year, but I'm just really hoping he doesn't cost the team with, how he plays and some moments in the second half. But so far, man, just to get onto the heaps of praise for the Packers, like I said, Jordan Love, he's playing great. He had almost 300 passing yards in the first half against the Commanders, and he's doing it without a clear-cut number one receiver. Dobbs is probably their number one. He's probably their best receiver at the moment, in my opinion. But Romeo Dobbs, he doesn't have any elite traits except I would say his best one is he has an insane catch radius. Or I guess not catch radius, but he's really great at contested catches, in my opinion. And he's a pretty solid route runner. But, we're still waiting on Matthew Golden to get that number one volume. Jordan Love did miss him for two wide open touchdowns, honestly, where he could have had a 90-yard score, and then there was another one where Jordan Love just underthrew him. So I think Matthew Golden's going to be good, even though he's not getting that big production that, we thought he would. And Jaden Reed being out is going to hurt their offense for sure. But, again, they still have Matthew Golden who's just going to get better and better. They have Romeo Dobbs. They have Josh Jacobs, which is a top 5 running back in the league. And when you have a great quarterback, they can uplift with some of those deficiencies that you might have. So I'm not too worried about their offense. And then defensively, everyone knows. There's nothing I could say about the Packers defense that you haven't already heard. Micah Parsons is amazing. The energy he has brought to that defense is crazy. He's made the players around him better. Devontae Wyatt looks better. Rashawn Gary was starting to go crazy against the Commanders. That defensive front, oh my God, I'm almost happy that Joe Burrow is not going to be in that game against the Packers because that feels like it's going to be a 6-7 sack day for the Packers defense against the Bengals offensive line. But, the Packers, I think, they could have a 5-2, start to the season. They're that good. The Packers, dominant. They're probably the best team in the NFC. I would say the only team I would say would give them issues is the Eagles because their defense is so good. But if the Packers offense can find a way to put up maybe 20, 20 plus points, they could beat the Eagles because the Eagles offense looks like dog shit. I don't know if it's the play calling or what, but receivers aren't separating. Jalen Hurts isn't throwing. Now they are winning, so obviously we have to give them that credit. Jalen Hurts is game managing the fuck out of these games. But it's concerning. It's pretty much with the Chiefs game, the Chiefs, all they had to worry about was Saquon. They didn't need to worry about A.J. Brown. He was shut down. I think he had 3 or 4 catches for 30 yards. shut down Smitty, shut down. I mean, Goddard didn't play, but like you get what I'm saying. Like the Eagles' offense was terrible. The Chiefs should have won that game, honestly, if Travis Kelce doesn't tip that pass up and do an interception. And that is honestly the perfect segue into what I want to talk about next, which is the Chiefs' 0-2 start. I'm not panicking on them. I still think the Chiefs are going to probably win 10 plus games this year. They're the Chiefs. They do that shit. But they've been exposed to be a lot more vulnerable than we thought. First off, their secondary has taken a nosedive from what it was previously. I mean, I remember when they had L'Jarius Sneed, it was locked down, for a while there. And Sneed's kind of fallen off since going to Tennessee, but the Chiefs' secondary is just atrocious. And their defensive line, Chris Jones is a game wrecker. I will never disrespect him. He is amazing. I truly think that he can carry a defensive line, but their defensive line is just not looking good. And then their running game. Oh my God, it looks terrible. I had traded Kareem Hunt. I thought he would be decent with the Chiefs because I was like, the Chiefs, Mahomes is going to get him down to the red zone. Kareem Hunt's going to barrel into the end zone. But him and Pacheco, they look terrible. Like, just to be honest, they look awful. And I don't know if it's a scheme thing. I don't know if it's just because Pacheco hasn't been the same since his injury. But, man, it looks rough. And Mahomes, before I give him some criticism, I will give him praise. He's the best player on that offense by far. And he's not playing trash. He's not, like, playing bad. He's still playing like a pretty decent quarterback. He needs help like every other quarterback does. That being said, he does have help. I don't think it's like a barren wasteland. I just think his help isn't performing up to par this year. Travis Kelce has been okay, but that interception cost him the game probably, and that is not Mahomes' fault. That is 100% on Kelce. Kelce's got to catch that ball. You're an NFL tight end. You're a Hall of Fame tight end. Sorry if you can see my cats going crazy in the background here. They just love to be part of everything. But I will say Mahomes, his deep ball accuracy looks like it has fallen off a cliff. I know he did hit the one deep ball to Tyquan Thornton, but there were a couple passes where earlier on that drive, he misses Thornton deep. Earlier in the game, Thornton's got like 2 steps on his receiver. He's in a walk-in touchdown. So I can't fully blame the defense for that loss against the Eagles. I know Kelce had the one bad play, but I mean, Mahomes missed an easy touchdown earlier in the game where he just overthrows Tyquan Thornton. And, he does hit him late, but that score could win them the game. That's game-changing. So I think Mahomes is at fault as well for their 0-2 start. He's not playing up to his standard. Now, his standard is an insanely high, amazing standard, but he needs to be better, in my opinion. And before we get into game predictions, the Bills, man, their schedule has to be the easiest schedule I think I have ever seen. It blows my mind. I'm trying to pull their schedule up. But they don't have any difficult games. Their most difficult game was the Baltimore one. And a game which I think they should have lost. They won by complete luck in that. And I know that sounds rude, like I'm discounting everything Josh Allen did, but they literally won because Derrick Henry commits a fumble. John Harbaugh doesn't want to go for it on 4th down with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And, they get way more opportunities than they should have gotten. That being said, obviously, they deserve credit for that. But their schedule, oh my goodness, it is so easy. The Bills genuinely might have a shot at going 17-0. If Joe Burrow was healthy, which we do play them later in the season, if Burrow was healthy for that game, I'd probably pick the Bengals just because if you didn't know, Josh Allen has not beaten the Bengals with Joe Burrow as the starting quarterback. I think they're 0-2. They lost the one playoff game, and they had a regular season game where Joe just annihilated them. So, if Joe Burrow's starting, I think the Bills do get a loss. But the rest of their schedule is so light. Their division, the Dolphins, terrible. The Patriots look like they're going to be okay. I don't think they're ready to beat the Bills. And the Jets, they're the Jets. What are we talking about here? But the Bills, they are a good team. I'm saying they're going to probably go 17 because you don't go 17-0 with being a bad team. It sounds like I'm kind of roasting them for saying they have an easy schedule. They do have a piss-easy schedule, but it's because they're a good team that the schedule looks so easy. James Cook, Josh Allen, that enough on the offense is already an insane lineup. And they have a pretty solid offensive line. And their defense, I think, deserves a little bit more credit. I know they let up 40 to the Ravens, but, I mean, it's the Ravens with Lamar, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers is really good. Like, the Ravens have weapons, and Mark Andrews as well. People think because Mark Andrews had that one bad play on a late throw, I should say, from Lamar. He had the one drop, which he should have caught, and everyone thinks he's washed. But Mark Andrews is not a bad player. I really think we need to hammer that down. Andrews is not a bad player. one more thing I want to talk about before we go into the week 3 predictions for this week. There was actually a comment on the last video, so thank you for giving us our first comment on the podcast series. And it was along the lines of Joe Burrow being inconsistent, and I just kind of wanted to talk about that. Y'all know me; I'm a huge Joe Burrow defender. I don't deny that. I'm very biased towards Joe, but I think there's a lot of facts rooted in reality about how good Joe Burrow is when he plays. And if we want to talk about last year, he was the best quarterback in the league last year. I mean, it's hard to make the playoffs when your defense is giving up points at an all-time level. I mean, the Bengals lost, 4 or 5 games last year where they scored over 30 points? That should not happen. Should not happen. There are games where Joe Burrow was throwing for 300-plus yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, or 400-plus yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, and they're losing. Like, they're losing those games. So I don't think Joe Burrow is inconsistent. I obviously he has like a bad game every now and then. Like, that happens. Players have bad games. And yes, he was not great in the week 1 game against Cleveland, but he doesn't control the plays that Zach Taylor calls. Like, yes, he's Joe Burrow. Yes, he has an input, but Zach Taylor calls the plays. And if Zach Taylor wants to play a very conservative game against the Browns, that's what Joe Burrow is going to do. And he did have some deep shots in that game, and he did have drops. Jamar Chase dropped it one of the I think it was the deepest ball of the week 1 game. Jamar Chase drops it in his hands, drops it. He does throw a touchdown. He throws for 100 yards. Like, I think people kind of, I'm not saying the person who commented this on the last stream is one of these people. I'm just saying that I think we're in an era now where people box score watch more than they actually watch the game, and they don't take into context. Because you see, for instance, Jalen Hurts, right? His week 2 game against the Chiefs. He throws for 101 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. And everyone's like, Jalen Hurts played like shit. Jalen Hurts is awful. And this is funny coming from me because I'm a bit of a Jalen Hurts, not hater, but, I ride with my guys. I don't think Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback. I don't really think he's a top 10 quarterback, which is crazy to say, but I feel like you could, it's a rude game to play, but I feel like you could put in 10 other quarterbacks into that system and they'd be just fine, if not better. But to give Jalen Hurts some respect, he can't control the play calls, and his receivers aren't getting open. What the fuck do you want him to do? You don't want him to force passes into these tight windows where they're getting interceptions where there's no separation, right? So I think just because quarterbacks don't throw for 300 yards and 2-3 touchdowns doesn't mean they had a bad game. Every game is different. Week 1, Joe Burrow had to play a conservative game because that was the game plan. And we have lost to Cleveland in the past because of turnovers. Their defense is fantastic. Cleveland has mastered the art of shutting down Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They just do. And if you want to take in the running game, Chase Brown was awful week 1. And he was pretty bad week 2 as well. So that's a big issue I see for the Bengals going forward, by the way, is their run game. The Chiefs might be worse, but the Bengals have a pretty awful run game right now. It's bad. It's really bad. And it needs to, get better, especially if we're starting our backup quarterback and we want to go on this run. But on to the week 2 predictions. I think I did pretty good in my week 1 predictions. I think I got the majority of them right. I should have kept track. I'll probably go back and then watch episode 1 and put my record on my week 2 predictions in the comment section of this video. But on to week 3, the predictions. Game 1, we have the Dolphins at the Bills, and I'm going to keep it real. I think the Bills are going to blow them out. I think the Dolphins might put up 20 points, but I think the Bills are easily putting up 40 plus. The defense is just rough. Sorry, I see my cat just spazzing in the background over there. But I think the Bills, this is going to be an easy win. I'm sorry, Kara. Sorry, babe. But I'm taking the Bills in that game. Bengals at Vikings. Again, no Joe Burrow, no J.J. McCarthy, no Aaron Jones. I will say the Vikings have Kevin O'Connell, an amazing coach, and they have Carson Wentz, a proven veteran. So I would not be surprised if Carson Wentz puts up 200-plus yards on this defense, maybe 2 touchdowns. So that being said, I'm going to ride with my guys. I'm riding with Cincinnati. I'm picking Cincinnati every single game of the week. I will never vote against them. That is my team. But I also genuinely think revenge game for Jake Browning. He's beaten them in the past, albeit from a bailout catch from T. Higgins. But Jamar Chase is healthy. T. Higgins is healthy. Yoshi Voss is good. Noah Fant has been an amazing addition. We still have Gesicki. I think they will be just fine. Hello. Now moving on, Texans at Jaguars. This one's tough because Trevor Lawrence did not look good. And C.J. Stroud has struggled because the Texans' offensive, just cohesive, their system's not cohesive. And they're playing in Jacksonville. if the Texans win, both these teams are 1-2. If the Jaguars win, the Texans are 0-3. Do I think the Texans can fall to 0-3 in this game? Yes. But I also think something really telling that happened in the Bengals and Jaguars game, I don't think the team has bought in on Liam Cohen as their head coach. You have the play where Liam Cohen is rightfully telling Trevor, hey, you need to hit the receivers in the chest, hit him in the chest. And then Trevor Lawrence just looks at his head coach and just waves him off. Just waves him off. And then they don't convert on fourth down, albeit it wasn't Trevor's fault. The ball was shallow and short of the sticks, but Brian Thomas Jr. has to catch it and could possibly fall forward. So all that being said, I'm going to take the Texans just because I think CJ's a better quarterback than Trevor, and I think DeMeco Ryans has a better, I don't know if he's a better coach than Liam Cohen, but I think he has a better relationship with his players. I think they genuinely want to win for DeMeco Ryans. And, as coaches, head coaches, obviously I'd take DeMeco Ryans because he's been a head coach longer. He's won playoff games. He's a good coach. Liam Cohen hasn't proven any of that yet, but he was a great coordinator. So give me the proven head coach with a proven quarterback. Give me the Texans. Colts at Titans. This is sneaky. I'm picking the Colts because, they haven't punted yet this year. Daniel Jones has been really good, surprisingly. Jonathan Taylor has been a monster as usual. I'm taking the Colts. The Titans, obviously, rookie quarterback. Cam Ward did throw a touchdown last week, but, man, once the game, kept going, they kept it close, but once they reached crunch time in the fourth quarter, they just looked outmatched by the Rams. So I'm going to just take the Colts in that game. Next, we have Raiders at Commanders. Depending on Jaden Daniels' health, I think Jaden Daniels is an amazing quarterback. If he's healthy, give me the Commanders to win that game. If he's not, give me the Raiders in a bounce-back game. Geno Smith looked terrible. Just terrible against the Chargers. No other way to say it. He was missing touchdowns, throwing it into triple coverage, throwing some of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. I don't think Geno's washed. I hope he's not washed because I think the Raiders could be a good team this year. But if Jaden Daniels is healthy, give me the Commanders. And then moving on from that, we have Rams at Eagles. Hot take. Give me the Rams. They played them really good in the playoffs last year. And this Eagles offense, it looks terrible. It looks terrible on all cylinders. I think A.J. Brown has 50 yards in 2 weeks right now. Smitty doesn't have much better production. Saquon's the only person on that offense doing anything. So give me the Rams. I like the way they've been looking, especially Matt Stafford looks healthy. I was really worried about him coming into the season with all the things we were hearing out of training camp, but Matthew Stafford looks like he is fine. He is slinging it. He is accurate. Puka Nacua just looks amazing. Devontae Adams was getting involved last week. And their defense, man, Jared Verse, amazing. People are forgetting about him. So, yeah, give me the Rams over the Eagles on the road in Lincoln Financial Field. I'm taking the Rams. Sorry, you guys just see my cat running around in the background. Steelers at Patriots. Oh, sorry, I skipped. Falcons at Panthers. Oh, man, it is getting harder and harder to defend Bryce Young. You guys, if you saw the first episode, I love Bryce Young. I really do. I want Bryce Young to be good. I want him to be great. It's getting hard, man. It's getting hard. Give me the Falcons. I think they just have way more offensive firepower, and their defense looks like it's actually going to be decent. I think they got, 6 sacks in their last game. Michael Penix Jr. looks like he's going to be a solid starting quarterback at the very least. He could still be better. I'm rooting for him because I really liked him. Bijan Robinson, of course, is one of the top 3 running backs in the league. It's going to be really hard to decide where he goes because, you got 1 Saquon, 2's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry could be slipping. He had another fumble against the Browns. So, we'll see, obviously. King Henry still needs to be dethroned properly. I'm not going to just throw him off right away. But, Bijan is right up there. I would say he's tied with, Josh Jacobs for 3, right? So, give me the Falcons. I think they're going to be able to win that game pretty, maybe not easily because it's division. You never know what can happen, but I'm taking them. Next, we have Steelers at Patriots. I want to pick the Patriots because I hate the Steelers, but it's hard because I don't know if the Patriots defense is really that good. Christian Gonzalez apparently is going to play, though, so it should be a massive upgrade. But I'm taking the Steelers. I don't see them starting 1 and 2. I know Rodgers played rough, but Seattle's defense is fantastic. So give me the Steelers in a bounce-back game against the Patriots on the road. Packers at Browns. We're not going to spend much time on this. This might be the game that we see Dylan Gabriel get a start. Or not a start, but he might get subbed in a little bit faster because I don't think 40-plus-year-old Joe Flacco is going to be holding up well against that Packers defensive line. And I don't think he's going to be slinging it down the field because the Packers secondary just to keep it real, I doubted them. Keyshawn Nixon's one of the best corners in the league this year so far. Obviously, we'll see how he does in the future, but yeah, I mean, I'm taking the Packers. I don't care if it's in Cleveland. It might be a tough game. It depends. If the Browns defense can shut down the Packers offense in the first half, maybe there could be a chance. But I think the Packers are just going to absolutely blow them out. Give me the Packers. Jets at Bucks. We're not going to spend much time on this either. Justin Fields is not playing. It is Tyrod Taylor taking the starting duties for the Jets. Give me the Bucks, man. Just give me the Bucks. I have way more faith in Baker Mayfield and that receiving core, man, with Mike Evans and Emeka Ibuka. And Cade Otton's a pretty good tight end. Just give me the Bucks. Moving on to Broncos at Chargers. The Broncos, in my opinion, have been very disappointing this year. Bo Nix especially. I was a Bo Nix defender in our friend group with the Z-Lads. I mean, they love to call him Yak Man. I feel bad for Revived. But he's not beating the allegations so far. It has been rough for Bo Nix so far this year. So give me the Chargers, especially at home. Justin Herbert has looked fantastic aside from one terrible read against the Raiders. I will say the Chargers were begging the Raiders to win that game, but they ended up putting them away, so I'll give them the credit. But give me the Chargers over the Broncos. And then we got Saints at Seahawks. I want the Saints to win so badly. I like Spencer Rattler so far this year, but the Seahawks defense, man, I just saw what they did to Aaron Rodgers, which I know Aaron Rodgers is old and washed, but I still think he's better than Spencer Rattler. And the Saints just, I don't see them being able to come up, especially on the road. Maybe if they were at home, I'd pick the Saints, but I'm going with the Seahawks here. Cowboys at Bears. This is probably going to be the most competitive game the Bears are in so far. Because once the fourth quarter hit against Minnesota, it was not competitive, and they just got blown out last week. But I'm going to take the Cowboys. Dak is going to probably throw for 300-400 yards against this defense, in my opinion, especially without Jalen Johnson. And Javonte Williams looks great. The Cowboys have a running game. They have a running game. And yes, the trade from Micah Parsons on their end, terrible decision. But Kenny Clark got a sack last week. He's being productive. He's made some tackles. He's made some plays. So, yeah, I think that they will still get returns for Kenny Clark. And they got a bunch of picks. So, it's not the worst trade in the world. This is not on the same level as the Mavericks trading Luka, in my opinion. So, give me the Cowboys over the Bears. Cardinals at Niners. Niners are at home. That is the only reason I'm taking the Niners. I think it's still Mac Jones starting for a little bit. Give me Mac Jones over the Cardinals. Again, Kyler, I like him. I really am starting to become a Kyler fan, but on the road, I just see the Niners holding up. Although it will be interesting to see how they play without Purdy and Kittle, but Mac Jones looked pretty good last week, albeit against probably the worst team in football. Give me the Niners. Chiefs at Giants. This is where the Chiefs break their streak. They're not going 0-3. Patrick Mahomes is not going 0-3. The NFL wouldn't let them go 0-3. But in all seriousness, cheating shots aside, I don't really think they're cheating. But give me the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes. I don't think that game from Russ, I think that's going to be an anomaly. I think Russ, is probably going to average maybe like 200 yards a game this year, which is fine. It's not bad, but I just don't see them beating Kansas City with Kansas City having such a huge chip on their shoulder. But, I mean, it could happen. It really could happen. The Chiefs are 0-2 as well. They're not great. Mahomes has not been playing great. Their running game is not great, and their receivers are just – Tyquan Thornton was getting open, but aside from him, who the hell do they have? And defensively, they've fallen off. So if Russ has a game like he does last week, maybe the Giants could win this one, but I'm picking the Chiefs. And last but not least, Lions at Ravens. This game is actually pretty easy for me. I know, over the years, these have been two juggernaut teams. They're both 1-1, actually, which is kind of shocking. So one of these teams is going to be 1-2, Lions or Ravens, which is just crazy to think about. But honestly, picking for me is really easy. Give me the Ravens. The Ravens in prime time against these NFC teams, they destroy them. I saw what they did to the Niners when Brock Purdy threw 4 interceptions. I saw what they've done to the Lions. I can't remember if it was last year or whatever, but they've blown the Lions out pretty much every time they played them. So I'm going to take the Ravens in that one pretty easily. And that's going to be the end of all the Week 2 predictions. I kind of talked about MVP in my last video. Going into Week 3, again, we're only 2 games into the season going into the third, so it's hard to pick an MVP. But right now, I think my top candidates would probably be Justin Herbert. I don't know if I can say Jordan Love because I have another pick for MVP on that team, and it would be Micah Parsons. The way he's energized that defense, It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Like I said, I'm a Bengals fan. I watch all the Bengals games. I've also damn near watched every Packers game for the last 3 years since I moved here. And I have not seen this defense as energized. They look amazing. So, yeah, and I'd say they're probably the best team in football right now. But that's going to be the end of the podcast episode. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And, yeah, if you have any name suggestions for the podcast, let me know. And next week, I'm planning on having our first guest. I'm hoping to have my boy B-Rad on, a fellow. Well, I don't want to dox him or anything, but I know he's a big Packers fan. So it'll be really interesting to have him on, especially if the Packers start out 3-0. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. This is Austin. I'm out. Peace, guys.